I have never, ever signed a waiver before going into an execution. It's important to state that, the existence of a waiver in the first place speaks to the fear that they have that something could go wrong.
Alabama is set to become the first state to execute a person with nitrogen gas. This method is so unproven and risky that the reverend who will be in the room at the time has been told to sign a waiver. Hello, I'm Ellison Barber in for Gadi Schwartz, and this is Stay Tuned Now. 58-year-old Kenneth Smith is scheduled to be executed using a method known as nitrogen hypoxia, where oxygen to the body is replaced with nitrogen gas. It will be the first time this has been done in the history of the United States. It's a controversial method largely because it is untested. In other words, what seems to be happening here is a gas execution experiment. And while critics are concerned it could be a very painful death for Smith, the state of Alabama claims it will be humane. Yesterday, a federal appeals court voted to allow the execution to go forward. Last month, Smith told NBC News about his fears for a nitrogen gas execution.
It makes it even worse that I suffered so much last year, and so I'm still dealing with that. I haven't overcome it. So the fact that they've got me lined up to be the first with gas is really terrifying.
The state tried to execute Smith before. That's what he was referring to there about last time. They tried to execute him with lethal injection in 2022, but botched that attempt. Prison officials failed to find a vein into Smith's hands and arms. Smith has been on death row for decades. He is one of 3 men convicted in the 1988 stabbing death of Elizabeth Sennett, whose husband, a pastor, had hired them to kill her. Now, with nearly 36 years since the murder of their mother, the sons of Elizabeth Sennett, they say it is time for justice to be served.
He admitted to it. He wrote it down on paper. He was guilty. So how does that turn into a 35-year wait to get justice for what our mother suffered from?
NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns joins me now from Atmore, Alabama. Dasha, you have covered this case extensively. We saw you doing that interview there with the victims' children. Talk to us about where things stand right now. Sort of the irony, if you will, here is that nitrogen hypoxia is actually not even recommended for animals unless they are sedated. Is it fair when people say Kenneth Smith is a guinea pig? Is that a legitimate criticism here?
Well, that's one that I've certainly heard from multiple sources. This is a story where there are no winners. You've heard from the Sennetts, the sons of Elizabeth Sennett, who was Smith's victim. You heard from Reverend Jeff Hood, who will be there in the room with Smith and is himself concerned about his own safety. And then there's Smith, who you heard from as well, who is going to be the first to experience this after he already survived an execution attempt back in 2022. So no winners in the story. But let me give you a quick update, Ellison, because just moments before we came on the air, there was some movement here. We've been here in the media center across the street from the Holman Correctional Facility where this is going to take place. We've been waiting for some kind of movement. What happens with these executions is usually there are legal maneuvers up until the last minute. And we were, in this case, waiting for final word from the Supreme Court on one more appeal, one more request for a stay from Smith's legal team to pause this execution. They said, no, this is moving forward. So just moments ago, some of the media team, there were 5 members of the media who were chosen as witnesses that were taken from the holding facility over to the Holman Correctional Facility, to the execution area where they will be able to witness that. So that's how we know that things are about to kick off. Now, the questions are, there are many. How long is this going to take? It could be quick. It could not be quick. And the thing that I've heard from, again, the Senate's, from his spiritual advisor, Smith's spiritual advisor, Reverend Jeff Hood, who is going to be in the execution chamber with him and could himself be at risk, the questions are numerous, and they feel like they have not been answered. The state did put out a protocol about how this was going to go, but it was heavily redacted. And the questions that have been asked by the press, by Kenneth Smith's family, by the Senate, have not gotten necessarily satisfying answers, Ellison.
Dasha, when you think of all these questions that still have to be answered, it seems like things are moving in a direction where this will happen regardless of those questions being answered. Yeah. But do you get the sense when you speak to sources, or at least people who are going to be really carrying this out within that prison, the Department of Corrections in that state, do they have confidence in the protocol for how they're going to carry out this execution? Or are they also feeling kind of the same way it seems like that reverend is, that he's just sort of not sure what could happen if it goes well, quote unquote, or if it all goes wrong?
The state says it does. They have expressed confidence in this method. The Attorney General has said that they want to give justice to the Senate family. They argued in court, the state did, that this was a painless and humane method of execution. But again, what I've heard from experts is that this is untested, it's unproven, and it's experimental. And so we just don't know. There are so many variables. I mean, the fact that there were 3 execution attempts on 3 different people here in Alabama over the course of about a year that were unsuccessful, that alone has a lot of folks really skeptical about how they will do with a novel method like this, Ellison.
All right, Dasha Burns in Alabama with some breaking news there. Again, the Supreme Court saying Alabama can proceed with the planned execution of Kenneth Smith using nitrogen gas. It will be the first time that has ever taken place. Dasha, we'll stay in touch with you and come back if there is any developments there in Alabama. Thank you so much. We appreciate your reporting. Former President Donald Trump finally takes a stand in E. Jean Carroll's defamation case against him. Though today's testimony took less than 5 minutes, it took even less time for Trump to break Judge Kaplan's rules on what he was allowed to say. The judge made it clear, explicitly clear, that Trump could not relitigate another trial that had already found him liable for sexually abusing Carroll in the 90s. But that is exactly what Trump did, telling the jury he considers it a false accusation. That statement was then struck from the record. For more, let's bring in NBC News correspondent Rahema Ellis. Hey, Rahema.
Hey, Allison, it was incredibly tense in the courtroom today as Donald Trump testified in his own defense in this civil libel trial against him brought by E. Jean Carroll, the writer. And it got tense even before the jury was brought in for his testimony. The judge had been trying to get Trump to understand there were certain things he could not redo because they had already been determined. It had been determined that he sexually assaulted her. It had been determined that he defamed her character. This case is just about how much he would have to pay in damages and punitive damages. As the judge was making that clear to him, Donald Trump blurted out, the jury was not in the courtroom, blurted out where the judge could hear, "I don't know who this woman is, never met this woman." At that point, the judge lashed out at him saying, "Keep your voice down, Mr. Trump. You are interrupting these proceedings while your counsel is talking, and it is not permitted." Once the jury was brought in, Donald Trump was sworn and took the oath. His testimony was taken, and it took only 3 minutes between direct examination and cross-examination. He took maybe a total of 4 or 5 questions. And on direct examination, he was asked about whether or not he knew E. Jean Carroll and whether or not he did anything to instruct people to hurt her. He said no. But then he went on to say other things in reference to not having assaulted her or not having defamed her. The judge struck all of that down and went on to tell the jury that they are to pay no attention to it. But it's hard to imagine how they're going to unring the bell and not include that in their thinking when they deliberate. What are they going to be deliberating? And the judge says it's likely they're going to get this case sometime tomorrow. E. Jean Carroll has already been awarded $5 million in the first case. Now she's seeking $10 million. And a Carroll expert estimates that it could cost somewhere from $7 to $12 million to repair her reputation. But this jury has also got to consider punitive damages, and that's essentially whether or not they can punish Donald Trump enough to prevent him from making defamatory remarks about E. Jean Carroll in the future. Sometime tomorrow in the afternoon, the judge says, it's likely that he will charge the jury, and that panel of 7 men and 2 women will get this case, and it'll be up to them to issue a verdict. Ellison?
NBC's Rahema Ellis, thank you. Now let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos for more on this. So Danny, talk to us about that testimony. Less than 5 minutes, I think it clocked in around 3. Are you surprised that the former president's testimony in this trial was so quick? And if you can, imagine you are his legal team for me. What would kind of have been your pros and cons to put him on the stand or not put him on the stand in the first place?
Not surprised it was so quick. Maybe a little surprised it came down to 2 or 3 questions. But you saw in the lead up, as the attorneys were debating it, that this really was going to get carved down to really a matter of minutes. And that's because the issues in this case were so narrowed. The liability side was already established. And Donald Trump obviously can't testify to the plaintiff's harm. So this is really just about the narrow issue of punitive damages. Now, a lot of folks may have been wondering, well, wait, on cross-examination, why didn't the plaintiff's attorney wade in there and spend 2 hours cross-examining a rare moment to have Donald Trump on the stand under oath? And the answer is probably because they didn't want to open the door. The plaintiffs already had Donald Trump successfully corralled, his testimony limited, couldn't give speeches. However, in the law, if you raise an issue that the other side wants to inject, they can argue that you have opened the door, and an issue that may have been inadmissible beforehand is suddenly admissible because you accidentally stepped on that landmine as a plaintiff.
Do you think they wanted him to take the stand, his defense team, or do you think this was one of those situations where he said, this is what I'm going to do, I'll do it anyway? I mean, for the timing of it, even though he did kind of go into the areas he wasn't supposed to, but as far as Donald Trump goes, the outbursts we've seen in court before, this was relatively tame, I guess. Do you think his legal team was like, yeah, this is good? What was the benefit?
In the ordinary case, I would say you don't want to call your client in a situation like this. But it seems to me, at least Alina Habba, the mission may have changed a little bit. They may view this as a lost cause, that it's not likely they're going to win. They're going to get hit for damages in some form or another. Does it really matter, they may be thinking, the difference between 9 million or 10 million or 10 million and 12 million? So why not? Let's just put another message in there. And Donald Trump very clearly seems to be committed to getting his message in, even though he knows he can't testify about things like she's lying, I've never met her before, and yet he persisted trying to inject that in. A matter of seconds into his testimony, he went into areas that he was not allowed to go to, and that got stricken from the record. So do I think normally this is a defendant you would have wanted to call? No, but nothing about this case and this client and this defense team is normal.
Talk to us a little more about the other people we saw in court today. A friend of E. Jean Carroll's taking the stand, hearing from her for the first time, Carroll Martin. How significant was that testimony? So
the defense's idea was they got a bunch of her text messages and wanted to get her on the stand and say, hey, weren't you texting about how nutty you thought E. Jean Carroll was, or Jeannie, or she had some nickname for her. And really what I think, and I expect the jury probably saw this as well, is that, look, this is something that we all do. You do it. Everyone does it. If you have a family member or a friend that you love dearly, you may talk to them. They say something wacky and you love them and you say, oh, great. But then you get on the phone and you text that other friend in your text group
chat,
the side group chat, and you're like, oh, Susan's lost it, right? You don't mean Susan's lost it. You're just saying, look, you're doing a little gossip. And that's what I think the defense was trying to do, is turn that idle gossip into an actual disparagement of E. Jean Carroll to make her look bad. I don't know that it worked. I think every juror knows someone like that, whether you want to admit it or not. You, even the great Ellison, has picked up her phone and gossiped about a dear friend or family member who you love dearly, but you can't help just having a few comments.
Sometimes you got to go to the side family chat that misses.
Side chat.
Yeah, the one, they exist in every family, I am told.
The worst part is you don't want to be left out of the side chat, because that means you're the subject.
Yes, you know there is one. This is true. We could go on forever about this. When it comes to this case and the punitive damages that are being sought here, you talked about it being, well, what's the difference if it's 9, 10, or 12? Do we have a guess at this point? I mean, we know what she's asking for, but is there any sort of Precedent is a silly word because I know the answer is no, but precedent to say, okay, this might be what they're going to say?
No, what you're struggling with is a really key question because you have two kinds of cases here that don't lend themselves well to tangible numbers. Number one, defamation. How do we measure the harm to someone's reputation? I bet if you asked any 12 people on the street, they would have different approaches to how to value reputation. Same for punitives. How do you value an amount that will punish Donald Trump? You know, factored into that is how much money he has, because what is punitive to you or I is not as punitive to Donald Trump. So that's a factor, too. This is not like a normal personal injury case where you have a broken femur and you put it up on the board and you know how many years of therapy you're going to need, and you can put an actual dollar amount on that therapy and that treatment. This is nothing like that. It could be anything. So you're absolutely right that this testimony, anyone who thinks they know what the jury's going to come back with is guessing. Yes, there was some testimony about repair to reputation would cost maybe upwards of $12 million. There's a number the jury can hang their hat on, but punitives, I mean, it could just be a multiple of the compensatory damages, which is usually what it is. Punitive damages are rarely based on any hard number. It's just based on, do I think this defendant did something really evil, and does he have a lot of money? That's about, after that, it's pretty much up to the jury.
All right, interesting stuff. Danny Follows, thank you so much. We appreciate you being here. Donald Trump beat Nikki Haley in back-to-back contests in Iowa and New Hampshire. But when it comes to raising super PAC money right now, it's Haley who's beating Trump. So the question now becomes, will it be enough to sustain her presidential bid in what is now a two-person race? NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard has more.
Right, Ellison, that's really the key question here at this point. Is it enough to sustain Nikki Haley's campaign? Because for the former South Carolina governor and former UN ambassador, she needs more than sustaining here at this point. She needs to make such significant inroads over the next month to begin to make this a competitive race with Donald Trump. We're just 1 month away now from the South Carolina primary, the next big contest for her. And polls over the last months have showed her down by as much as 30 percentage points. And she raised the super PAC, I should say, affiliated and allied with her, raised more than $50 million in the back half of 2023. That was more than $5 million more than the main Trump super PAC, which suggests that her team or her allies are, in fact, raising and have raised significant amount of funds, which allows her to stay on the campaign trail. And she held a rally last night. She's holding 2 more rallies over this weekend here. Donald Trump does not have anything on the books in the immediate future in South Carolina. But for her, she's going to have to go back onto her home turf and continue to make the case to the voters to stick with their South Carolina native. And for Donald Trump, he was in the courtroom today in the E. Jean Carroll defamation trial in which he even testified. And so for him, his attention has been diverted to a lot of different places. But for Nikki Haley, she lost by more than 30 percentage points in Iowa, lost by 11 percentage points in New Hampshire. And the prospects for her are very difficult. And for her to make the case to donors going into the future that she is still worth investing in, she's going to have to rely on the money that they have already raised, because to get that sort of backing, financial backing of millions of dollars moving forward is going to be difficult unless she can prove that she can win. And we're still a month out from that point in which she can really make the case that she still has a legitimate shot to take down Donald Trump to become the Republican nominee here in 2024. Ellison?
Vaughn Hilliard, thank you. Don't go anywhere, because we are just getting started. For the first time, a parent is going on trial for the school shooting her son was behind. We have those details. Plus, cervical cancer is on the rise for women in their 30s and 40s. So what's behind the spike and what's being done about it? And online scammers are becoming more convincing these days, even posing as celebrities to get money from victims. That's all just ahead, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. A roof of a church in New London, Connecticut has collapsed, leaving a gaping hole and covering the ground there with rubble. Local police are now urging people to avoid the area as emergency crews continue to respond. Thankfully, it seems right now no one was hurt. Former Trump advisor Peter Navarro has been sentenced to 4 months in prison for defying a congressional subpoena regarding the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Navarro was convicted in September on 2 counts for refusing to testify and provide documents. Navarro has already appealed the ruling. Today, the Biden administration announced nearly $5 billion in funding will go towards infrastructure projects across the country. Projects including bridge replacements, highway improvements, and pavement upgrades. Following that announcement today, the president visited Wisconsin to promote his economic policies, saying that they have restored infrastructure and created more jobs. A new study says there have been nearly 65,000 rape-related pregnancies across the 14 states that banned abortion after Roe v. Wade was overturned almost 18 months ago. The research also finds that there have been less than 10 abortions each month in those states with bans, suggesting that most victims were not able to get abortions in the states where they live. In Michigan, opening statements began today in the trial for Jennifer Crumbley, the first parent in the U.S. to ever go to trial over a school shooting that was carried out by their child. Crumbley was emotional in court today, sobbing loudly at one point when school surveillance video was being shown. Her attorney was also seen crying, leading to this tense interaction after the prosecution accused them of trying to influence the jury.
We were not sobbing or making a scene in any way. All my eye makeup's still on. I checked my camera. I'm not having. I need to run to the bathroom. I need a break.
You'll remember the defendant's son, Ethan Crumbley. You see him there. He was just 15 years old when he killed 4 students at Oxford High School back in 2021. He is now serving life in prison. Jennifer Crumbley and her husband, James, they are both facing 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, accused of not doing enough to address warning signs from their son leading up to the shooting. James Crumbley's trial is set for March. NBC News correspondent Adrian Broaddus joins me now with more. So, Adrian, this trial, it leads to the question of whether or not parents should be held responsible if their child carries out a school shooting, right? Walk us through some of the facts of this case. What did we hear on this first day in court?
Ellison, that is the big question. Both sides agree Jennifer Crumbley did not pull the trigger that killed those 4 students at Oxford High School. Now, prosecutors take a turn here. They're saying she's not charged with murder, but instead, as you mentioned, involuntary manslaughter. And the prosecutor, during his opening statement today, saying by definition, it is rooted in negligence. By contrast, the defense is saying Jennifer Crumbley had no idea and no way of knowing about her son's plans. Listen in.
They were murdered in an act of terror committed by Jennifer Crumbley's 15-year-old son. Jennifer Crumbley didn't pull the trigger that day, but she is responsible for those deaths.
She did not have it on her radar in any way that there was any mental disturbance, that her son would ever take a gun into a school, that her son would ever shoot people.
And the prosecution spoke for about 13 minutes during their opening statement. By contrast, the defense 24 minutes. We did learn from prosecutors that they plan to bring at least 20 witnesses to the stand to testify, and they plan to introduce more than 400 pieces of evidence, some of which we saw today. Ellison?
Adrian, why are both parents being tried separately? I mean, they're facing the exact same charges, right?
Yeah, 4 counts each of involuntary manslaughter. Initially, James and Jennifer were going to face trial at the same time, but a motion was filed for separate charges and separate trials, and that request was granted. Now, we are unable to ask their attorneys why, and that dates back to a gag order that was imposed back in 2022. It bans Jennifer's attorney as well as James's attorneys and the prosecution from speaking publicly. And court documents didn't offer an explanation, but inside of the courtroom on Thursday, today, we did get some clues. The defense is painting a picture and making the case that James Crumbley, Ethan's father, was responsible for storing the guns, and also making the case that Jennifer really didn't have as much knowledge about guns. Ellison?
Adrian, before we let you go, do we know if the son, the shooter in this case, is going to take the stand in at least his mom's trial?
If it's up to his attorneys, Ethan Crumbley will not take the stand. His attorneys do not want him to testify in this case. But Jennifer's attorneys did file a motion on Monday requesting a judge to compel Ethan to testify. So we will continue to watch, and that is unclear. Back to you.
Adrienne Broaddus, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Coming up, we're watching some severe storms and flooding moving across the country. We have your forecast. But first, you gotta see this. Last week, we were telling you about buffalo wing flavored lip balms. Well, the crazy product combos just keep coming. Hard seltzer company Truly, they're putting a spicy twist on your typically fizzy alcoholic drink. They're putting out a hot wing sauce flavored seltzer. Soon you will be able to get a boozy kick of heat to keep you fired up while you watch the Super Bowl. And don't worry, they're not sold out this time. The drinks will be ready to order online on Monday. You can get a 4-pack of 16-ounce drinks for $24. Sounds like it might be worth a try. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Here are some of the stories happening out west that we're following. An Orange County jury has found Marcus Erez guilty of second-degree murder for the killing of 6-year-old Aiden Leos. The decision comes 3 years after Erez fired into a passenger car on a highway, killing Leos, who was strapped into a booster seat. He faces up to 40 years to life in prison. A 4.2 magnitude earthquake shook Southern California last night. The tremor was centered in the San Bernardino area, but light shaking was felt across much of the region. The quake began near the San Jacinto Fault, which is regarded as one of the most active and potentially dangerous fault lines. There were no immediate reports of significant damage or injuries. Convicted rapist and incarcerated 70s show actor Danny Masterson was denied bail on Wednesday. A Los Angeles Superior Court judge denied his bail pending appeal with worries that Masterson could flee, stating that he'll most likely remain in custody for decades or for the rest of his life. The former ranch actor is currently serving a 30-year life sentence in California on dual rape convictions. He'll be eligible for parole in 20 years. Flooding is the big weather story tonight as we head into the weekend. Right now, millions across the South are under alerts after days of rain, with more in the forecast. At least one death associated with the weather has been reported in Mississippi. Other places like Houston, Louisiana, and up to Tennessee, they're dealing with dangerous conditions on the roads and rivers at or near flood stages. Bill Cairns is standing by with the forecast. We will get to him in one moment, but let's start with NBC's Gadi Venegas in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with more. Hey, Gad.
Ellison, as the storm makes its way through the south, we still have some of the low-lying areas that are flooded. You can see this river behind me with one of these walkways that is also flooded. So authorities are asking people to stay away from these areas. We're in Covington, Louisiana, right next to another town where we saw images of flooding in shopping centers and all across the roadways. This is just north of New Orleans, and that was in Mandeville, where we saw a lot of that flooding. We also saw a lot of rescues taking place in eastern Texas, north of the Houston area, most of that happening on Wednesday. Now, after that storm poured all of that rain on Wednesday, authorities were worried because the ground is saturated with water, so more rain on Thursday could have made things worse. Now, fortunately, the rain today wasn't as bad as the day before, but again, any rain to hit the region in the next few hours could be dangerous because of how saturated the ground is with all of that rain that has come through. But the good news is that the storm is already making its way out of the region. Ellison?
Gadi Venegas, thank you. Now, the severe weather threat moves east. NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns has the forecast for us. Bill, good evening.
Good evening to you, Ellison. And what a soggy, dreary, foggy weather pattern so much of the country has been in. It continues right into the weekend. That's what happens when it's unusually warm, when it should be cold. There's just so much moisture at the ground. It's just kind of ugly out there. So we have about 19 million people still under flood watches. Some of these have expired during the day today. Some are being reissued for the next round of rain that's coming. The bottom line is we do not have a lot of significant flooding occurring now, and I don't actually expect a lot even as we go through tomorrow. This storm system that's been plaguing us in the south south is finally starting to weaken and move a little bit to the east. Rain is spreading through areas of Illinois, another batch of rain into areas of Virginia. These thunderstorms are dying out in areas of Georgia. So at worst, some ponding on the road, some isolated flooding is possible. Additional rainfall tonight and tomorrow. We can handle this up to 0.5 inches in Green. Southern Louisiana, that's going to be associated with our next storm, and that would be mostly Friday night with the heavy rain threat. So let's talk about this next storm. This one's going to soak the same areas that just got soaked and flooded. So that's why we're concerned with additional flooding. So this is Friday evening at 8 p.m. and that shows you the heavy rain is from Lake Charles all the way through Baton Rouge, heading into Iberia, New Iberia, and also into New Orleans. Then as we go throughout Friday night to Saturday, we take this through the southeast, a soaking rain through the Carolinas during the day on Saturday. This is 8 p.m. Saturday with heavy rain arriving in Washington, D.C., all the way through Virginia. Some backside chilly rain in areas of Kentucky. Then on Sunday, enough cold air is going to be on the north side of this for some areas that are going to get heavy, wet snow. Now, it doesn't look like a blockbuster snowstorm unless maybe you're in the Catskills or the Berkshires or the Poconos, but we will see some snow. So our two computer models, we have our GFS, which is our American one, and our European model, which is typically a little more accurate, a little more computing power. This one is showing light to moderate snow throughout a bunch of areas, but nothing that's going to cause like major headaches. Our American GFS model is actually showing a heavier snow event with this storm through many areas in the southern tier of New York, northern Pennsylvania, and right through central and southern New England. So we have to wait and see and fine-tune this forecast. We'll have a better idea of that this time tomorrow night. And then for our friends on the West Coast, this is the calm before the storm. Everything's been great today, great tonight. This huge area of white is a big storm that's out in the Pacific. There's a strong Pacific jet stream with us. It's going to pull an atmospheric river into the northwest and on the west coast for about the next 5 to 6 days. So it's going to be a long duration event. So we have some showers out there as we've gone throughout the day today and this evening. The heavier, steady rains arrive as we go throughout your Friday. It's going to be a soaking drive up Interstate 5 through Oregon and into areas of Washington. The snow levels are extremely high. So this is a Pacific warm air mass, so we're not concerned with snow. It's just a lot of heavy rain and melting snow could cause problems, especially in the Olympics. And this is through Saturday. Still areas of heavy rain out there. So as far as the rainfall forecast goes, notice the Cascades here, 2 to 3 inches. But when we get to the Olympic Peninsula, that's when we could get up to 4 to 5 inches. We've already got some rivers that are already running pretty high in this area. So that's, if we're going to get any problems, like maybe moderate and possibly major flooding on rivers, that's where it will occur. So we'll continue to watch this, Ellison. Everyone drive careful out there. It's kind of soggy and definitely foggy.
Bill Cairns, thank you. After 50 years of declining cervical cancer rates, the American Cancer Society is sounding the alarm about an uptick in diagnosis. While doctors are seeing a dramatic drop among women in their early 20s, there has been an increase among women in their 30s and 40s. A new report found that from 2012 to 2019, innovations like the HPV vaccine led to a 65% decrease in cervical cancer among women ages 20 to 24. But in that same time period, diagnoses of cervical cancer in women ages 30 to 44 rose almost 2% every year. For more on this, let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. Dr. Patel, cervical cancer has been described as one of the better understood cancers. So why is it that women in their 30s and 40s are seeing this rise in cases? I mean, I think back to when I got the HPV vaccine. I'm 34, and I got it when I think I was a junior or senior in high school, like 2007, 2008. So I'm a little surprised to see that increase amongst women in their 30s. What is going on?
Yeah, you're right, Ellison. It is surprising and something that we should all be aware of. January is Cervical Cancer Awareness Month, and about 3 factors driving this. Number 1, the pandemic. A lot of people skipped visits and regular screenings. Number 2, there was some change in guidelines, Ellison, over the last several years where they changed recommendations. It used to be that you would say, come in every year for your pap smear. They changed the guidance to every 3 to 5 years, depending on your age. And that can confuse people. You just forget to do something if it's every 3 or every 5 years. And then I think third is that there's a very small percentage, but rising, of a more aggressive type of cervical cancer that's a little higher up and a little harder to detect by a pap smear. So all those 3 things are driving this. But the real truth is screening and not getting the vaccines. That's why we see it presenting in older women.
So what should women know or take away from seeing a study like this, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, or 40s? What's the takeaway here for you?
Yeah. takeaway is getting screening and prevention. And let's talk about, I'm glad you did get your vaccine. You can get it as young as the age of 9. I generally started in patients around the age of 11. You can administer this vaccine up to the age of 45. Not everybody needs it at that age, but just don't forget, don't think that you're too old or too young. And remember, it's for men and women and boys and girls. So something to remember. And then pap smears start at the age of 21. And you get that, generally speaking, every 3 years. The most common cause of cervical cancer is that HPV, human papillomavirus infection. It's usually transmitted by sexual contact. So remember all those things, get screened, add in your other screenings, breast cancer too.
If people are noticing something doesn't feel right in their bodies, when we're talking about cervical cancer in particular, what are some of the symptoms or red flags where someone should say, hey, bring this up with your doctor during your next visit?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, sometimes by the time you get symptoms, it's further advanced than we'd like to see, which is why we recommend screening. But Ellison, I tell women all the time that if something just doesn't feel right, and often what we'll hear about are kind of abnormal bleeding cycles. So people who are just having something about their periods that seems strange, pain in the cervix is kind of that part of the lower part of your uterus. So women can distinctly sometimes feel some sensitivity around that area. Sometimes that can happen when you're having sexual intercourse. Sometimes that can happen when you're having a period and you insert a tampon. Anything that just feels out of the norm, your body and you know best. So get that checked, and that can be done at a simple primary care visit or with your OBGYN.
All right, Dr. Kavita Patel, thank you so much. We appreciate your time and insight as always. Still to come, an update from Gaza. Hamas says it will release Israeli hostages, but with conditions. We have a report from Tel Aviv. That's next. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world. Spain's former soccer president could stand trial for kissing a player against her will. Luis Rubiales made headlines last summer when he forcibly kissed a player after Spain's Women's World Cup medal ceremony. Rubiales resigned as head of the Spanish Federation in September. Now he faces sexual assault charges, and if found guilty, is looking at 1 to 4 years in prison. 6 nuns kidnapped in Haiti last week have been released. The Archbishop of Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, told the Associated Press the nuns, as well as 2 other people, were released yesterday, and everyone is in good condition. $3 million was reportedly demanded for their release, but right now it's unclear if any sort of ransom was paid. Tourists visiting Peru's Machu Picchu had their trek interrupted by protesters today. Their beef appears to be with Peru's government, who they accuse of privatizing ticket sales at the famed attraction. Some tourists were pretty determined, though, and still made it up, escorted by police. And 2 British museums say they are returning looted artifacts to Ghana. Artifacts that include 17 items like gold and silver pieces, even crown jewels. Many of these items, they have not been seen in Ghana for more than 150 years. This is all part of a deal where the items will be loaned back to Ghana, which skirts UK laws that bar the repatriation of such cultural artifacts. Now to the Israel-Hamas war, where fighting continues and hopes of a ceasefire hang in the balance. The U.S. is sending the director of the CIA there in hopes of getting a deal done. NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez is in Tel Aviv with more.
CIA Director Bill Burns heading to Europe this weekend to meet with his Israeli counterpart, the head of the Mossad spy agency, and the Prime Minister of Qatar, the lead mediator between Israel and Hamas. That's according to a diplomat familiar with the situation. The CIA Director hoping to make progress towards a new ceasefire deal that would lead to the release of the Israeli hostages still being held in Gaza. It is a tough task. Israel and Hamas have remained very far apart since the last ceasefire deal collapsed back at the beginning of December. The key question is whether a ceasefire would be temporary or permanent as part of this deal. Hamas says it needs to be a permanent ceasefire. They say they will not release any more hostages until the war ends. Israel says the war will not end until Hamas is destroyed, and it will only agree to a temporary pause in the fighting. So Bill Burns trying to bridge those gaps. The fact that he is making this trip is a potentially positive sign. We saw a similar trip ahead of the last ceasefire deal in late November. A little counterintuitively, the fact that the fighting is so intense right now in southern Gaza could be a possible indication that the Israeli military believes a ceasefire deal is looming and it wants to make as much progress on the battlefield as it can before that deal comes into effect. Here in Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, under intense pressure from the families of the remaining 136 or so hostages in Gaza. I spoke to a released hostage earlier today. She is back out in Israel. She is beginning to take steps to resume her life, but she was telling me every single day she is haunted by the knowledge that those other hostages remain inside Gaza. She said the Israeli government needs to make one big deal to bring everybody out, soldiers, civilians, men, women, young and old. She says whatever it takes, however many Palestinian prisoners need to be released, Israel needs to make that deal and needs to make it now. Back to you.
Raph Sanchez, thank you. Before we go, it is time for the future of everything. Celebrity imposter scams are on the rise. One woman sent thousands of dollars to someone she thought was an NBC News reporter. That story is next, so stay tuned. New guidelines from Meta on how to keep teens safe online. That is straight ahead in the future of everything. But first, here are some of the tech headlines we're following today. Microsoft will lay off nearly 2,000 workers, mostly in its gaming division. That's following the acquisition of gaming giant Activision Blizzard. The cuts represent about 9% of Microsoft's 22,000 gaming employees. And Apple says it's opening up its App Store to competitors in Europe. The move will crack open the company's well-known walled garden, as it's called, which controls distribution on Apple platforms. But this isn't coming from the goodness of Apple's core, if you will. The change is actually in line with the new European law. It's a concern for many families, keeping their teenagers safe online. Meta is rolling out new measures aimed at protecting minors. They're limiting who can message teens and also making sure they can scroll safely without being exposed to harmful content. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has this report.
For parents worried about who is messaging their teenagers on social media, Meta says it hears them, announcing changes to accounts on Facebook Messenger and Instagram for teenagers under 16 years old.
Today we're announcing a new default setting for teens around messaging that makes Instagram safer for them.
Blocking DMs from anyone who they don't follow and aren't connected to. For parent-supervised accounts, changes made to that setting or any other safety and privacy setting now has to be approved by a parent.
We believe that parents know what's best for their individual child, and we want to do what we can to empower parents to make those decisions to shape Instagram.
The announcement comes after steps taken earlier this month that limit teens' ability to see potentially harmful material and to alert them when they are spending a lot of time on the app at night. 95% of teens use social media and are on it more than 3 hours a day, which the Surgeon General says puts them at higher risk for depression and anxiety. Critics say these measures announced by Meta today don't go nearly far enough.
These changes are about as effective as a screen door on a submarine.
Tech-savvy teenagers may easily navigate around restrictions. How difficult is it for a teenager to lie about his or her age and set up an Instagram account?
It is so simple because we've never put in age verification and age assurance requirements. By the way, $1 trillion company can figure that out.
Our thanks to Stephanie Gosk for that report. Now to a concerning trend online where criminals are pretending to be celebrities to scam people out of money. The so-called imposter scams are costing Americans a ton of money and can have some pretty big consequences. Here's NBC's Vicki Nguyen.
The first time I saw him was on the Today Show.
Jane Head of Tennessee might be the world's biggest Jacob Soboroff fan.
Who wouldn't like that face?
Last May, Jane posted a message on Jacob's verified Facebook page. 2 weeks later, someone responded claiming to be Jacob. and asking her to message him on WhatsApp.
I was elated. It was just like, oh my gosh.
They exchanged thousands of messages over the course of 6 months.
How often were you communicating?
Almost every day. And there were days when the line of communication was open all day long.
Her daughter Joni couldn't believe a busy network news correspondent was chatting with her mother, and her instincts were right. The scammers pretending to be Jacob convinced Jane to send more than $17,000 in Bitcoin and gift cards.
I was saying, no, I can't. And this person said, well, just let your bills go this month.
Police say a victim in Kansas lost $94,000 to someone falsely claiming to be country singer Neil McCoy. Another in Pennsylvania scammed out of $41,000 by a Johnny Depp impersonator. And this woman in Philadelphia told our local station she sent $290,000 to a scammer posing as golfer Phil Mickelson.
It started on Facebook.
In 2023, imposter scams cost Americans $2 billion.
There's an allure about celebrities and people wanting to believe that they're actually talking to those people that they see on TV and in the movies every day.
FBI Special Agent Andrew Innocenti says scammers look for super fans.
They become targets for these types of criminal actors.
During our investigation, we found imposters pretending to be Keanu Reeves, Reba McEntire, Ryan Reynolds, Dolly Parton, even me, on X, Facebook, and Instagram.
What are some things social media companies should be doing to protect consumers?
Well, I don't think the entire onus should be on consumers to report when they've been contacted by a scammer. Imposter scams affect people of every age group, every income group, no matter where you live.
It was very hard for me to approach her about it.
Hoping to break through to her mom, Joni reached out to NBC News for help.
I feel the strain, but it's only because I love her.
I have something that might be able to cheer you up just a little bit. I want to introduce you to somebody.
Jacob.
Jane.
Hey.
Thank you so much for your support. And I'm so terribly sorry that, you've gone through something now that so many people have gone through. You're going to help a lot of people by having this conversation with Vicki.
Thank you for what you do. You're just a joy to watch.
In a statement, Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, said they take steps to protect their users and wrote, scammers have always existed and they continuously adapt their tactics to new technology to manipulate people in various ways. That's why Meta, alongside our industry peers, continues to take steps to improve detection and enforcement. They said they removed 827 million fake accounts from July to September last year, in addition to the accounts we found, and they asked for the public's help in reporting scam accounts. X did not respond to our request for comment. To reduce your risk of becoming a victim, be wary of anyone who reaches out to you claiming to be a celebrity. Never send money or gift cards to someone you don't know. If you have lost money to a scammer, cut off contact right away and contact the bank or gift card company immediately to try and reverse the transaction. And Jane has this bit of advice.
My journey brought me extreme happiness and then mortifying sadness. But I think I'm here to point out to other people to be careful.
Vicki Nguyen, NBC News.
That does it for us tonight. I'm Ellison Barber. We will see you tomorrow, but until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.